Hey there folks, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Marvel Legends Pizza Spider-Man from the Hobgoblin Build-A-Figure wave. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright guys, so let's first take a look at the figure's accessories. Move him off to the side. First up you get Hobgoblin's left leg. Not too concerned with this. It is what it is, it's pretty cool. It's a Build-A-Figure piece, whatever. The first piece that made this figure really unique is the fact that you get this pizza, this slice of pizza. Of course, this figure came out in 2015. People are well aware of this. This figure has been dubbed the Pizza Spider-Man, of course. But even still to this day, this accessory is still really unique to the Spider-Man. We've seen it been re-released, I think, 2 other times with the Vintage Collection and then the Negative Zone Spider-Man. And we've seen figures like Deadpool come with tacos and stuff like that, but other than that, we haven't really seen anybody do anything like this unless you're considering maybe the Into the Spider-Verse line. We've seen that version of Spider-Man come with some, food-related accessories, but this is still pretty unique to this guy, which I do like. Along with uniqueness is this interchangeable half-unmasked head, which has still not been done by any other company from what I'm aware of. I'm pretty certain this is still the only time we've seen it, at least for Peter Parker. And I know Hot Toys has done their unmasked, but it's a little bit different than this. And then also the same with Miles Morales. I think some Miles Morales figures from other lines come with an unmasked head, but it's more like the mask is sitting above the face. This is like just the mouth exposed. And I'm pretty certain, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty certain we haven't seen this yet. So this is still a really unique accessory. And just to zoom in real quick there before we move on, it's still a really good sculpt. I do really like this a lot. Very sharp. The eye paint is not perfect, but it still looks pretty good. Of course, you get a set of wall crawling hands. Very nice. And you can see that they have the little nubs on them. So these are not going to be interchangeable with a lot of your other figures, unfortunately. You do get your whip hands. So this one's a little bit bent. But your nice whip hands, and then of course the figure has the fist hands on already. But that's about it for accessories. As far as the figure goes, I personally really like this figure. I've had him in the collection for a long time, but this specific one is a new one. I got this guy brand new. It's one of the most recent figures I've gotten. I've had my original one since it came out, but unfortunately, mine has seen some better days. I'm very unenthusiastic about showing this in this kind of condition. It makes me very sad, but it is what it is. This is a figure that was subject to my start in customizing. The hips are black because, I don't know if you guys remember this, but people were going around modifying this guy's hips to make him so he could have a wider stance. And when I was younger, I didn't do it properly. I did exactly the thing you're not supposed to, so I swapped his hips out with another figure and never got around to painting it. Well, actually, I think I did paint it at some point, but it didn't. I removed it. And then the arm was painted to look... I did start to repaint the arm because at some point I was going to paint this to look like Tom Holland's Spider-Man in Civil War. I don't know if you guys remember this either, but there was also a time when Civil War came out where a lot of people were taking their Pizza Spider-Mans and turning them into Civil War Spider-Mans. And that's something that I try to do with this guy as well. And, I wanted to get another one to have him stock because I still plan on fixing this guy up and getting him looking sharp. But I wanted a stock one. So he's not going anywhere. He's going to get fixed, and he's going to sit on my shelf proudly, and that's all there is to say about that. But as far as this guy goes, he's definitely one of my favorite Spider-Man figures, and I think he does a really good job of looking like a contemporary Spider-Man. When I see this Spider-Man, I think a lot of the artwork that I see in Spider-Verse, as well as the last few issues of Superior Spider-Man when Peter gets his body back. This really reminds me of that specific art style. I'll throw up an image of the end of Superior Spider-Man so you guys can get an idea of what I'm talking about for those of you who don't know. But I personally really like this guy. But, you know, at the end of the day, when you compare him to something like this, as much of the fact that, I'm not a huge fan of this figure. In simple terms, I'm not the biggest fan of this figure. I think it could be better, and I do have some issues with it. Since this figure's a lot older, I don't really have any big issues with it. I personally still really like this figure. But when you're holding these two figures next to each other, there's no question in my mind that there is a quality difference between these figures. As far as the plastic goes, as far as the way that the figure feels, and of course the paintwork. And the paintwork on this figure is just leagues better. As far as the webbing goes, as far as the red paint and the blue paint, it's all extremely better than this. You know, this thing has weird things going on, like really thick lines on the boots, which is something that's on my previous one as well. The eye paint, the web paint, the chunkiness of the red, and the glossiness of the figure. But to be fair though, these aren't all things that Hasbro has done away with for a while. I mean, there's a lot of these issues on this figure, which is only 2 years old. You know, even my Amazing Fantasy figure has paint issues on the stomach. So, but largely speaking, there's a great deal of improvement in the quality of the newer Spider-Man figures compared to this Pizza Spider-Man. That being said, I still really enjoy this figure in the collection, and I still think it represents a perfect contemporary Spider-Man. And it's still worth getting, and it's still worthy of a #1 spot in the collection. If you don't have any other Spider-Man figure, and this is the one that you want, I still think that it works as your main man. And I don't know. I personally really like this figure. I would show you guys some head swaps, but I already did some prior to filming. And there's not really anything that stuck out to me as particularly good or anything like that. I think the ones that work the best are the retro collection heads, but they sit too high. Other than that, the other ones are kind of weird shaped for this body, besides like the Peter Parker heads. So as far as head swaps go, we're not really going to be doing that in this video. But just to get a closer look at his details, you can see that he just looks like a contemporary Spider-Man. He's got a nice blue on him, he's got a nice red, he's got the classic spiders, nothing too different. As far as the pins go on the inside of the arms, that's not anything that bothers me. I've been used to it my entire life. Every Spider-Man figure I've had has had that. So, I mean, the new pinless joints are cool and all, but this isn't anything that's ever bothered me, and it won't bother me anytime soon. Again, the webbing isn't the greatest. The paintwork isn't the greatest, but at the end of the day, I think this figure still has its nice charms, and I respect it a lot for what it is. It represents a turning point in the Marvel Legends line, to where Hasbro really started to step up their game. And if you're one of the people who still doesn't think that that thinks Hasbro is still lazy with their figures, I can see where you're coming from, but like, there's definitely a quality difference between these two figures. Maybe you think this figure doesn't come with enough stuff, or that the price is too high, but at the end of the day, they really are starting to feel like higher end figures. This figure doesn't feel bad, but I mean, just look at the figure. The finish on this guy is completely it's consistent all the way through. The paintwork is consistent all the way through. The only issues that this guy has in terms of paint is that his blue is on his shoulders is different from the rest, but other than that, everything is the same. The webbing looks great. The red all looks great. I mean, at first glance, this guy looks good in terms of colors. He doesn't really have that issue, but you can see that he runs into some issues on his abdomen and his shoulders, and there's some chunkiness going throughout and some glossiness, but I still personally think that this guy is definitely a standout in the collection for me. And as far as how your opinions are on the Pizza Spider-Man, I still think overall this one is, or the Pizza Spider-Man mold, I should say, I still think this one is the best one on that body. But yeah, guys, I'm not going to go over articulation just because we've seen this so many times. I think we're going to just jump right into some size comparisons. I got some of my thoughts out on the figure, and that was more so what I wanted to do. This isn't anything that's new, so I figured my personal opinions on it would be a little bit more interesting than just reviewing the figure as normal. But yeah, guys, this is definitely something that I would recommend just for nostalgia purposes or sentimental value. I think this guy is worth that. But even just as a Spider-Man figure, he's still one of the best in my opinion. And he represents a contemporary Spider-Man better than most. I would say that over this one doesn't really represent a contemporary Spider-Man in my opinion. The spider's too big, the head is weird, and generally Spider-Man's drawn to look more like this kind of stature than he is this. I think it's a better contemporary Spider-Man than the retro one, and this isn't even his head. So as far as a kind of all-around good representation of Spider-Man, you don't really have very many options. I think this guy's only real competition for just a classic Spider-Man is probably the Mafex version. And not the one that I have the classic costume version, but I mean the initial release. In terms of its colors, it kind of represents that better, but I think this one's, if Hasbro went ahead and tried to do this again, whether they used this body or the Renew Your Vows body, I think that would be really cool. You know, these kind of eyes, I would like to see them kind of mix this body with this one. Maybe a more ripped version of this or a slightly lankier version of this, but more so adjusting this one to look more like this than instead of the other way around, if that makes any sense. Not that this body needs to change, but just so there's more options for molds and stuff like that. But I still think this guy works as your contemporary Spider-Man, and I think he's probably the best out there. Not the best figure, but in terms of overall, I don't know, you guys get what I'm saying. Let's move on to the size comparisons. Alright guys, so your first look at size comparisons here. Here he is next to the Renew Your Vows Spider-Man on the left, as well as the Retro Collection Spider-Man on his right, or on the right, with the Spider UK head. Here he is compared to the Retro Collection 90s Spider-Man on the left, as well as the Amazing Fantasy 60th Anniversary Spider-Man on the right. And last but not least, but here he is compared to the Toy Biz Face-Off Cap, as well as the Hasbro Marvel Legends Modular Iron Man. I personally really like this guy, and I think he's worth getting in the collection, whether you're a big Spider-Man fan or not. He definitely represents a turn in the Marvel Legends line. He represents a perfect contemporary Spider-Man in my opinion, and he's just a really nice piece in the collection. So I would definitely recommend him, and I just think he deserves a lot of respect. So with all that being said, I'm gonna get the hell out of here. And of course, if you want to like the video, if you liked it, hit the like button, subscribe, notification bell, all that would be greatly appreciated if you choose to do so. And of course, until next time, true believers.